Hey friends, have you ever felt really out of sorts? Maybe dizzy, shaky, and just generally unwell but couldn't figure out why? Well, let me tell you a story that might shed some light. The Mysterious Coma Case. Not too long ago, in July to be exact, a 47-year-old woman living in Sacramento ended up in the emergency room in a pretty scary state. Her speech was all slurred, she couldn't walk properly, and she had no feeling in her hands or face. Yikes. But here's the kicker. She soon slipped into a coma that lasted several weeks. Can you imagine? So what could possibly cause such a dramatic decline? Well, as the doctors dug deeper, they uncovered a shocking culprit: mercury poisoning. Turns out this poor woman had been using an illegal skin-lightening face cream laced with mercury. Who would have thought something as innocent as a beauty product could lead to such dire consequences? The toxic truth about mercury. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but mercury, isn't that stuff only a problem if you work in a factory or something? I'm afraid the reality is much more insidious than that. You see, every single one of us is exposed to mercury to some degree, whether it's through the food we eat, the air we breathe, or yes, even the cosmetics we use. And listen up, because this heavy metal is no joke. It can attack our nervous systems, our digestive tracts, our immune systems, you name it. We're talking tremors, insomnia, memory loss, headaches, muscle weakness, and in extreme cases, even death. And get this, if a pregnant woman has high mercury levels, it can lead to birth defects and developmental issues for her baby. Scary stuff, right? So where is all this mercury coming from? Let me break it down for you. The many sources of mercury exposure. Number 1, dental fillings. Can you believe that for over a century, mercury has been a key ingredient in those silver dental fillings? I know, it seems crazy. Now, having some amalgam fillings probably won't do too much harm, but all that mercury being used adds up, and it eventually makes its way into our environment. That's why there's a big push now to phase out amalgam fillings and switch to mercury-free alternatives. Number 2, fish consumption. I've got some bad news for all you seafood lovers out there. The bigger the fish, the more likely it is to have high mercury levels. You see, mercury accumulates in the food chain, so those top predators like tuna, swordfish, and shark tend to be loaded with the stuff. In fact, studies have found elevated mercury levels in women of childbearing age living in island communities where fish is a huge part of the diet. And indigenous groups who consume a lot of seafood, like those in the Arctic, are particularly at risk of mercury poisoning. Now, I'm not saying you have to swear off fish altogether. It's an excellent source of protein and those brain-boosting omega-3s. But you might want to be a bit cautious, especially if you're pregnant or live in an area with a lot of mining activity. More on that in a sec. Number 3, cosmetics. You'd think your makeup and skincare products would be safe, right? Well, think again. Mercury has been found lurking in skin-lightening creams, eye makeup, and even some eye cleansing products. Yuck. While many countries have banned mercury in cosmetics, there are still plenty of unscrupulous companies out there peddling tainted products. So, be a savvy consumer. Stick to reputable brands, check those seals and labels, and don't buy anything that looks shady. Number 4, small-scale mining. This one's a doozy, folks. You know those artisanal and small-scale gold miners? Well, they often use mercury to help extract the gold from rocks and soil. And sadly, a lot of that mercury ends up being released directly into the environment. In fact, according to the UN, small-scale mining operations released a whopping 800 tons of mercury into the air back in 2015. And get this, there are somewhere between 12 and 15 million people working in this sector worldwide, all at risk of mercury poisoning on top of the environmental damage. It's a real crisis. Number 5, coal burning. Last but not least, we've got to talk about coal. I know it's already public enemy number 1 when it comes to air pollution and climate change, but it's also a major source of mercury emissions. Sure, coal itself doesn't contain huge amounts of mercury, but we burn so much of it that all those small concentrations really add up. And as our global energy needs keep growing, you can bet your bottom dollar that coal burning will keep pumping out more and more mercury into the atmosphere. The good news? We could reduce mercury releases from power plants by up to 95% just by improving plant efficiency and controlling other pollutants better. Small steps for a healthier planet. So what can we do about all this mercury madness? Well, that's where the Minamata Convention comes in. But wait, before I forget, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on more vital health tips and eye-opening facts. I'm committed to empowering all of you with the knowledge you need to live your absolute best life. The Minamata Convention, a glimmer of hope. Back in 2017, a pretty big deal went down in the world of environmental protection. After years of negotiation, the Minamata Convention on Mercury finally took effect. It's the youngest international environmental treaty out there, and so far, 114 countries have signed on. The main goal? To tackle mercury pollution from all angles. Mining, emissions, products containing mercury, you name it. Because folks, until we get a handle on this toxic heavy metal throughout its entire life cycle, our health and the health of the planet will keep being threatened. Now, I could get all technical and scientific about the specifics of the convention. Instead, let me give you a taste of some of the awesome stuff this treaty is trying to accomplish. First up, they want to encourage people all over the world to use less mercury in those silver dental fillings we talked about earlier. Gotta love a mercury-free smile. Secondly, they're pushing for better ways to manage mercury waste. So it doesn't just end up polluting our environment. Third on the list is supporting safer mining practices. This way, those hard-working miners aren't exposed to as much mercury, and it doesn't get released into the air and water as much. Number 4 is getting countries to set their own national targets for reducing mercury emissions. Because we all gotta do our part, right? And finally, they want to promote mercury-free alternatives in all sorts of products and industrial processes. Bye-bye, toxic mercury. It's an uphill battle for sure. But every little step counts when you're taking on something as pervasive as mercury contamination. So what can you do? All right, I've hit you with a ton of heavy information so far. Your head might be spinning a bit, but don't worry. I've got your back with some simple tips to minimize your exposure to mercury and give your body its best shot at staying healthy. Number 1. Go easy on the big fish. We all know how good it is for us, packed with protein and those brain-boosting omega-3s. But here's the thing. The bigger the fish, the more likely it is to have high levels of mercury. So my advice? Go for the smaller fish species. And don't overdo it on seafood, especially if you're pregnant or live near areas with a lot of mining activity. Number 2. Read those labels for cosmetics and skincare products. You'd think these would be safe, right? Well, not always. Some shady companies out there are still putting mercury in their products, which is a big no-no. So when you're shopping for makeup or face creams, always read the labels carefully. If something looks sketchy or doesn't have proper labeling, steer clear. Number 3. Support smart policies. It's important to stay informed about policies and regulations that aim to limit mercury pollution, like the Minamata Convention. Reach out to your local representatives and let them know that you care about this issue. Every voice counts. Number 4. Stock up on nutrients. Load up on nutrient-rich foods like protein, calcium, iron, and vitamins. These will help keep your body strong and resilient, so it can better handle any exposure to mercury or other heavy metals. And remember, if you're ever experiencing weird symptoms or think you might have been exposed to too much mercury, get yourself checked out as soon as possible. The earlier you catch it, the better. Phew, we covered a lot of ground today, didn't we? From coma-inducing face creams to the role tiny artisanal gold mines play in spreading mercury across the globe, I hope I've opened your eyes to this pervasive health threat. The bottom line is, we could all likely stand to reduce our mercury exposure, whether that's through our diet, product choices, or supporting better environmental policies. After all, a little goes a long way with something this potent. So keep learning, keep making smart choices, and keep telling your friends and family about heavy metals like mercury. The more we all know, the healthier and safer we'll all be. Thanks for sticking with me through this ultra-important topic, friends. I'll catch you next time with another can't-miss episode. Until then, stay safe and be healthy.